Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this dark little corner of the internet we like to call our vampire game. We like it dark around here. We like it very dark around here. I mean, look at Creep. Creep's just creeping in the shadows. Yes. All right, that's Ricky Creep. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Super happy to be back here tonight running this little Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle we got going on here. Tonight's the second episode for Her Light. We'll be off next week, but then we'll come back with 2 more episodes. But I'll talk about that at the end of the game. First, I would like to introduce you to this wonderful coterie of bloodsuckers who have been haunting my nightmares with their inherent darkness for a week now. That's all I can think about. It's just your darkness. I just sit there and I just ponder your darkness. How's everybody doing? Y'all good?
Doing good.
Yeah. Are you sure? Because I'm like, how you doing? Everyone's like,
I think we were all frantically trying to unmute our microphones quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
the next time I'll give you a heads up. I'll be like,
Perfect.
Can I get 5 seconds? I need a few.
To register that that's what's happening, and then to actually reach for the mic and then find where your mouse is. Yeah.
it's fine. I'll give you 5 seconds. You get 5 seconds, Bones. You deserve 5 seconds.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks so much for being here with me again tonight. Let us go around the table and please tell the fine people watching us here who you are and who you are playing tonight. And
Hi.
Bones.
I'm Little Bones 209. And I'm back. Hello. I play Odette, the Malkavian, pious, precious little angel who's done nothing wrong in her entire life. And she's doing her absolute best, and I'm just waiting to see Jesus.
Think Jesus is coming?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I
It's
don't think
coming
he's
for
coming.
Odette.
I think he's just breathing hard. Thanks so much, Bones, for being back here tonight, and we'll see if we can tarnish your halo a little bit here tonight, because that's what we do here. We tarnish people's halos. Next up, I would like to introduce my friend Mornian. How you doing? Just like a waitress. Just like
Great.
a waitress.
Woo, that was a little warm to drink right now. Anyway, I am Mornian. We'll be playing Anton this evening. And apart from being here playing this amazing game, you can find me pretty much in one of these amazing people's streams, being either a mod or a general nuisance.
We like that. We like general nuisances. Sorry about that, about the skull and coffee. I'm gonna come to you now, Myriad, okay?
None of that came through.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I was just saying, I was giving Myriad a heads up that
Oh, okay.
I was
It's
coming for an
me.
exit. Hey, what's up, Myriad? How
Hi.
you doing?
I'm good. Hi. I'm Myriad. Don't call me Myriad_X. That's my government name. You can catch me here streaming on Twitch. And I'm playing Florence, the Toreador painter.
What does Florence paint?
A great many things. But she does do quite a lot of religious iconography
Which was kind
as
of
of
the
lately.
was kind of the big thing at the time. It was basically religion and nothing. It was the only entertainment in town was religion. Basically, that's what was going on. Thank you so much, Myriad, for being back here tonight with Florence. And finally, the one who needs no introductions, because her eyes stare straight into your soul and absorb all the light that is there. Creep. What's up, Creep?
Hi, hello.
Hi,
I'm
hello.
Creep, darling Creep Show. And I'm playing Agravain tonight, your cynical, godless Nosferatu. He's quite cranky.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll see if we can let him let off some steam tonight.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see what happens. I am, of course, Bleak Season. You can find me here, a bunch of other places. I play all the other characters as well as the World of Darkness itself, attempting to suck away all the humanity of these wonderful people here. The music you're hearing tonight is by Ivan Dutch. Please visit Mr. Dutch's website. He's got tons of really cool music stuff for all your creepy music needs, whether it be on streams or other avenues. I would also like to indicate that the players can definitely use a little bit of your help. If you are interested in getting involved in the game, helping out the players, you can do so with bits. By donating bits, you can buy a player of your choice for 100 bits, an advantage. And what an advantage does within the context of this particular game is it gives them an auto success. So it's pretty cool. For 300 bits, you can buy one for each of them. So if you want to get involved, please do that. And of course, I super appreciate all your follows. You just being here helps out a lot. I have a lot of plans for the channel, a lot of cool games coming up. I may or may not have a Penny Dreadful game coming up after this one. Oh yeah, Penny Dreadful. That's where we're going. And so, let us then, if we're ready, everyone's ready? Hello, vampire babies. If everybody is ready, let us begin our game with a little recap. Last game, you are all members of a coterie that live together in this manor called Crevecoeur Abbey, which used to be an abbey but is now owned as a manor by one Aveline Cristu. Aveline is a Toreador elder. Some of you, Florence, noticeably, are her children. Some of you are just vampires who unfortunately have kind of fallen under her sway, her control, her thumb, however you want to put it, over the years. And while it used to be a fairly decent place to live in, Aveline has sort of become, well, a little unhinged, I guess, perhaps, over the past few years. You have another sort of member of your group, another child of Aveline, whose name is Geoffroy, who basically is just a plaything for Aveline. She tortures him nightly, and now his screams of pain and horror haunt the halls of this manor day and night. You are also hearing that out in the countryside, the peasants are starting to kind of get upset with the state of things, not necessarily because of the vampire stuff, but the political state of things, the economic state of things. There's a lot of talk of revolution in the air. You've been informed, some of you, through some contacts, that there is some sort of movement that is forming in the nearby village, and that they may be getting perhaps a little bit uppity, a little bit violent, sooner rather than later. As you were going through your evening, a couple of things happened. One, a friend of Odette, a vampire called Santiago, who you all know, who stayed at the manor some years ago, contacted Odette and said that he wanted to meet the lot of you the following night. Also, at the end of that evening, Aveline announced that she had decided to let one of you sire a child. There is a young priest in town. Thank you so much, Sithy, for the donation. Everyone here gets an advantage. Thanks to Sithy 413. You were told by Aveline that she was contemplating letting one of you embrace this new priest that was in town. You wouldn't be able to embrace him right away. You would turn him into a ghoul to control him, and she hopes to basically control the peasants and stamp down on all this revolution talk by controlling this priest. This priest has had quite an impact on the lot of you. He is an incredibly angelic looking figure. His voice is basically, when you hear it, it's entrancing. He is definitely a gifted, blessed individual. He stands out, and all of you have your own reasons for perhaps wanting to embrace him. We know that some of you want to just sort of despoil him and bring him down a peg or two. Some of you just want to break him like you would any sort of beautiful objet d'art. Some of you want to embrace him to celebrate his beauty and his the gift of his voice, and some of you want to embrace him because, well, he is so close to God, it may help you perhaps also come closer to God for those of you who are into that kind of thing. And so we ended last session with the four of you being told by Aveline that she would make her decision and that the priests, the young one and the old one, were coming to dinner the next night. Florence and Odette, you had been tasked with cleaning out the chapel to make it presentable for the father, while Anton and Agravain, you had been told that, of course, the old priest, was going to need to be disposed of, and we couldn't dispose of it in the usual manner. We have to make sure that the body can never be found, because that would really set off the peasants, and no one wants to set off the peasants. And so this is where we are tonight. You have spent the rest of the evening, prior night, tending to these tasks, and we will see them in a second. But before we get to that, there's the matter of waking up. It's never easy for a vampire to wake up, because the state of your body is to not be alive, to not be active, to not be moving. And you kind of have to fight against the pull to remain in stasis, to remain in torpor. So it's always a very active act of will to extricate yourself from wherever you sleep at night. And the sleep of vampires is not necessarily without dreams, perhaps, visions, memories that flash through your mind as you are actively trying to awaken yourself. So let's take it back a little bit. It's a little flashback here. Let's go back to quite a long time ago in the Holy Lands, in Jerusalem. At the end of the Holy Wars that reclaimed the city for the Christians from Europe. The city has just been claimed in this moment. It is a very beautiful day. The sun is shining down on Jerusalem, the various domes of the city shining brightly, but there's a bit of a dark cloud that hovers. Of course, leave it to the Christians to overlook your brethren's heathen ways while they needed you to fight and die for them, Anton. But now that the city is taken, now that Jerusalem is finally into Christian hands once more, well, now your brethren's occasional sacrifice to Zeus become highly problematic for the Christians. But there are few problems the Christians have not been able to resolve with the judicious application of fire, and so you watch. You watch as a number of your brothers, those who spoke out too loudly or too brazenly, burn at the stake. The smoke from their screaming bodies drift in black and obscene towards the sky as, well, as a sacrifice to the Christian God is what it is. But that's all right, you guess. Let's not mention that by burning your brethren and enslaving you, they also don't need to pay you the hefty sums of gold they promise you to fight for them. Surely that didn't come into play at all. So here on the hill, overlooking Jerusalem, you watch your brethren burn. Two Christian blacksmiths come around, tightening manacles and chains around your wrists, ankles, and throat. As they clasp them tight, you swear to yourself, this will be the first and last time that you will be in chains. A particularly thick plume of smoke, perhaps you imagine it being the dark soul of your mercenary brothers headed to Hades for a well-deserved rest, obscures the sun just as the Christian soldier, one of their Knights Templar, comes by to verify the work of the blacksmiths, tugging on the chains and making sure the clasps are strong. This one, as you gaze upon him, is beautiful, the kind of beauty that becomes cruel just by its existence beyond you. He bends down to verify your shackles. Perhaps this one knows where you and the other ones chained with you are going.
Don't worry, your other slaves did fine. gods to get out of here soon.
Sorry, can you say that again? I totally...
I pray to the gods I get out of here soon.
Agravain, you are satisfied with the chains, with the clasp. Perhaps this uncouth one who's talking right now thinks you don't understand the Greek language, but of course you do. You are, after all, highly educated. What do you do?
Hold your tongue, heretic.
Like to hold that for me?
I would cut it out of you. Speak of gods, there is no gods. There is only one God, the true God. He will see you flaming in hell.
I'll see you right there with me. You're more free than slave to your own god.
I am no slave. And he gives a little tug on your shackles.
Yours are just invisible. For now.
Agravain straightens a little bit, and you see him. He's very tall. He's very well built. He has golden blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, and he is every bit of handsome, as our storyteller described him. Say it again, slave. Mock me more.
You have one god against the Pantheon. Who do you think will win? I don't need to mock you anymore. Your religion does that for you.
As Anton is saying this, Agravain is clearly growing in aggravation, and before he can finish his sentence, he unsheathes the sword at his belt, and he's gonna just crack him on the skull with the hilt of his sword. Shut up, slave. You know nothing.
And as this scene fades from your memory, both of you, the lingering feel of the sun on your skin on that day brings back, of course, bitter memories. Both of you stir where you sleep and awaken. But before we see what happens with you later that night, we travel back, perhaps not as far, but some time back, to Italy. Florence, you take a step back and admire your handiwork. The sunlight filtering in from the open window lands perfectly on the canvas, making the bright gold and yellows and ochre colors you've just laid down shine as if lit from within. From the window also comes the sound of life, people milling about, the smell of spicy Italian cooking tickling your nose. Below you is the studio of one Master Alessio Ferrer, who has agreed to let you rent this upper floor as your home and studio in exchange for one painting a month, which he sells by passing it off as the work of one of his less talented, but male, apprentices. You hesitate, wanting to sign the painting with your own name for once. I see what you are thinking, Fleur, but you know you cannot. Not yet, says Bastiano. And the mix of tenderness and sadness in his voice mirrors the one in your heart and soul. With a sigh, you acknowledge his truth, and you sign whatever male name strikes your fancy. Bastiano smiles as he admires your work, truly awed by your talent. Of all the people you have ever met who knew of your talent, Bastiano is the only one who ever truly respected you as an artist as much as your art. It's such wonderful work, Fleur. Tell me, Why the light that makes it shine so seems to hesitate in doing the same with your eyes? What weighs on your mind?
Floor sort of looks at him. It is disheartening knowing my work is being praised, and yet no one will know that it is I who painted such lovely things. I know that this is the way, that even so, I have been given a great opportunity here, and I am so grateful, but still, I wish to be known.
Is not the act of the art itself, the act of creation itself, is that not enough? Is that not, in some ways, the whole purpose? What is being recognized when compared to the actual talent?
Floor will look at him and, despite their close relationship and this fondness that he has for her, will sort of shrink into herself. Because how could she ever explain the desire to be known to a man? How would he ever know this desire when he's probably never felt it, never felt this burden that she feels? It's something incomprehensible to anyone who has never felt it before. And she will sort of nod a little bit more meekly. Yes, of course, you're absolutely right.
My dear Fleur, I see I've made you sad. Please, come here for an instant, and he just sort of guides you until you can stand straight into the shaft of sunlight that is coming down. I hear flowers love the sun, and it is the sun that gives them such life. And you feel that sunlight washing over you, warming your skin, bringing the light into what darkness had started creeping in around your thoughts. He says, perhaps I can bring more light into your life. I have found someone. I not making any promises, but she is a well-known patron of the arts. She has money, she has influence, and she greatly appreciates your work. And perhaps I took a little bit of a gamble, but I told her who you were. And she has expressed interest in offering you her patronage.
She?
Yes. Her name is Aveline. She is from France. She is highly interested in offering you her patronage. She would like to meet you.
Do you know when?
As soon as you are ready to travel, she has asked me to make arrangements for you to go and meet her in France, near Lyon. I believe your family comes from there.
Oh, yes. On my mother's side, that is. But this would be so wonderful.
Understand, I make no promise. These nobles, sometimes they can be very fickle. They love something greatly one day and despise it the next, but she seemed very earnest and very kind, and certainly seemed very interested in you as a person and as an artist.
I should continue painting then, so I have work to show her when I get there.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. I will go and get us something to eat while you continue your work. Please, I will wait for you to open the door before I enter again. Whenever you are finished, take your time.
As he goes to walk away, Fleur is going to call out to him. Thank you, Bastiano. I really do appreciate all that you've done for me.
Oh. To see the work that you do, to see the light and the life that is born from your fingertips is reward enough for me. I thank you, Fleur. And with that, he turns around and exits. You are left alone. Suddenly, the inspiration strikes. The muse is upon you, and you will paint late into the night in preparation for meeting this strange possible patron, Aveline. Finally, a few years after that, in a small rural abbey in the countryside in France, Odette, you have found impossible the idea of falling asleep. You're much too excited. The entire abbey is abuzz with this news that a group of Templar knights have arrived and are being hosted at the abbey. Of course, as a young nun in training, you are not permitted to interact with men. But you found yourself, of late, becoming increasingly curious about them. And you find it very difficult to resist the urge to slip out of your bed, walk down a moonlit corridor of the abbey, down a set of stone stairs that leads to the kitchen where the servants are preparing evening meals for these nights. You arrive, and in front of you is the door that leads to the dining hall. It is closed, but on the other side, you hear men laughing, talking, mostly in Latin. What do you do?
Odette's going to very slowly crack the door open and sort of spy on what she can see.
You see in the room a dozen or so Templar knights sitting at the various tables. There's a beautiful fire going in the fireplace, and the men are eating very simple meals, but seem to be enjoying them immensely. They seem to be taking a lot of pleasure in the simplicity of what they are being offered, the simple bread and vegetable broth and the mead that they are drinking. The only thing that strikes you as a little strange about them is that they're not similar to other Templar knights you've met. The other Templar knights you met before had these stark white tabards with these striking red crosses upon them. These are dressed in black tabards with gray crosses, and it's difficult to tell in the gloom of the room and the distance where they are, but they seem to have skulls engraved on some of their pauldrons or some of their helms or some of their shields. How do you feel as you look upon this group of men just eating and laughing and...
She's nervous, and maybe even a little bit scared, but her curiosity is one that can overcome both those feelings. And she slowly slips into the room and closes the door behind her as softly as she can to sort of keep herself as unnoticed as possible. She just simply is looming a little bit closer, quietly and without directly speaking to anybody.
You notice very much their mouths as they're talking and laughing and eating, and how they just bring the food into them, and their voices are so powerful and strong and ring out clear. And you know these are soldiers of God, and you can almost detect a faint smell of blood on them. These are men who have killed for God, and as you contemplate this, you suddenly feel a shadow looming over you, and a gravely damaged voice says, "Shouldn't you be in bed, little one?"
Nearly jumping out of her own skin, she will quickly turn around to face who is speaking to her.
You see a Knight Templar much like the others, in the same garb, but he has a different medallion clasp on his cloak. His face is strange. It is damaged, perhaps by fire, several scars. He is missing teeth. His skin is split in certain places, and there is a void, a sort of absence of life when he stands in front of you, and for a moment you almost imagine that you are looking at a corpse. But of course he is standing in front of you and talking, and now grinning, even though his grin is perhaps a little off-putting. He'll look down at you and say, "I hope you have done your prayers, as you should, before you slipped into bed tonight. Tell me, what were you praying?"
You see Odette sort of very nervously clutching her rosary and nods and says, of course, yes, of course. I say my prayers every night and I do all of my Hail Marys. And she sort of rambles on about that before actually answering his question. And she sort of closes in on herself and she said, I was praying for you and your men, of course, and for God's forgiveness every night, of course, and then, the maintaining of your work.
You were praying for God's forgiveness for me and my men, or for yourself?
She takes a moment and very sheepishly shrugs and says, for myself.
And what would God have to forgive you for? Certainly, you are not a sinner.
No, well, we're all sinners. I mean, Christ died for our sins, and so surely there's things that we do throughout our day that is sinful.
Tell me then, you little sinful creature, what is your favorite verse of the Bible? Let's see if you've learned well.
She stops and thinks a moment, her eyes sort of darting about before she finally looks him dead in the eye, and she says, Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves.
Very good choice. Shall I tell you mine?
She'll nod.
Leviticus 4:32. And if he bring a lamb for a sin offering, he shall bring it, a female without blemish. As he says that, you hear, Odette, Odette, and the head nun, you see her coming straight for you. She's not looking at the knight, she's not looking at any of them, but she comes towards you and grabs you by the arm. You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing? Come on, you bad child. And she starts pulling you away.
Odette maintains eye contact with this knight as she's dragged away, and she's almost fascinated by him and his words. And as she's dragged away, she smiles at him, and it is a sickly sweet smile.
He watches you go for one moment and then turns away. As he turns away, you see that the knights in the room have all turned to stare at you. And you see one that you couldn't see before because his back was turned to you, but this one knight turns towards you. And his beauty is beyond anything you've seen up to this point in your life. He is wearing this dark tabard and these skulls and these weapons of war, but there is this utter grace and this beauty that is the kind that can only be created by God. And he watches you go. And as the head nun is pulling you away, she's like, I can't believe this. How dare you go up to Master de Leon like that and speak to him? You know you're not supposed to talk to the men. She hauls you down the hall into the chapel. She throws you on the ground in front of the effigy of Christ behind the altar. She goes into a little side room. She comes back a few moments later, and you see that she's got these thorny reeds, these little branches, and she puts them on the ground. And then she hauls you over, and she lifts your night shift up, and she makes you kneel right on top of them. And as you kneel on top of these things, you feel the thorns digging into your flesh. You feel the strips of wood just bury themselves into your flesh. And for the next hour, she makes you recite prayers over and over and over again. You eventually pass out, and when you wake up, you're in the infirmary bed. There's another nun there that is pulling thorns out of your knees. Do these hurt? She says.
Clearly they do. On Odette's face, you can see that she is wincing and probably a very tearful face. But to the nun, she looks to her and she will say that suffering is Christ-like and pain is the heart of love.
As you say this, the nun signs herself, and over her shoulder you see someone staring at you. Through a crack in the door, the old priest who runs this abbey, whom you almost never see, is looking at you, and he smiles and closes the door. "1381 now, France. The four of you wake up in your beds, in your coffins, in your tombs, wherever it is that you sleep. You rouse yourself out of the slumber. You feel the blood that is animating you burn away as you make the effort necessary to rise up. You know that you are expected tonight to receive the priests from the town. You know, Odette and Fleur, that you will be expected to be presented to them as Aveline's daughters. You will be expected to eat with them, so you will be needing to expend some of that potency in your blood to give yourself an appearance of life, to force your skin to be warm and red, and to force yourself to be able to endure the food, at least for some time. I'd be interested to know, as you wake up, all of you, how do you go about feeding? You know you'll need to have your strength for what's to come tonight. So perhaps we go around here a little bit, and you can tell us how your character goes about refreshing themselves, perhaps, in this instance. And we'll start with Agravain. How does Agravain feed?
I would imagine that with his connections in the village, he would likely have his ghoul lead him some unsuspecting prey to the manor.
Do you have a type, or just whoever's available?
He knows that his master prefers things of beauty, but if no such thing can be found, then he will take what he can get.
Your ghoul comes to meet you tonight and brings you various bits and pieces of news. He says that the village is very concerned about the priests coming to see you. He tells you that to placate the more outspoken of the villagers, the other priest has decided to bring along a number of other priests and nuns also to this meeting. So there will be a number of people here tonight. He's also brought you someone you've perhaps dined on before. A young man of not perhaps the same level of quality in the beauty department that you normally prefer, but certainly passable. The young man is very nervous and somewhat afraid. Your ghoul tells you that he's told him that you pay well for information and that you reward those who help you, and that this young boy here, well, not a boy, but this young man named Albert is very interested in perhaps helping you out. So how do you go about doing this? Can you describe the scene for us?
I imagine that Agravain would relish in this moment. He would peel away his mask and reveal the ugliness below to the boy. He would, before feeding on him, likely place small kisses on his neck, taste his flesh with his tongue before sinking in his teeth. And he would drain him, not entirely, enough to make him weak, enough to make him dazed. Yeah. It would be almost sexual in nature for him.
Do you relish the taste of the fear and the blood that is produced when they see your real visage?
He does. Very much so.
And that moment when that fear turns into ecstasy as the kiss takes over. Your ghoul will, once you're done, will take the young man with him and will say, "Was he satisfactory, my lord? Are you pleased?"
He will do. He has done.
Very well. I'm glad you approve. Thank you. I'll bring more news if there is any. Thank you. And he'll hush her off. The man, you feel rejuvenated, filled with power once more, and ready to face the name. Mornian, how does Anton feed?
Anton would. The hunt is kind of the fun part for him. Skulk around right outside the manor, looking for the perfect target. Secluded, alone.
You find a traveler on one of the roads nearby. Someone coming perhaps from another village, from a town, or just passing through, perhaps a bit of a pilgrim. He seems undisturbed with the fact that he's walking by night. He's got a walking stick and a bag on his shoulder, and he's saying something under his breath. You assume it's a prayer, but it doesn't really matter much to you. How do you go about this?
Skulking around vegetation, bushes, stalking him for a bit. Try to hear the prayer a bit. Doesn't matter. When the moment's right, lurch from the bushes, grab him by the shoulders, around the face so he can't scream.
He's a bit of a fighter, and he's pretty big, and he swings his stick, and it just breaks as it connects with your body.
Feel like a slight chuckle. and then commence to not to kill him. We'll take a sizable amount, enough that he knows there's something wrong, but we'll let him continue praying to his god.
Which he does until the ecstasy of the kiss takes him over, and by the time you are done, you leave him curled up in the ditch near the road, where he will probably be safe for the rest of the night, mumbling and perhaps dreaming about strange creatures that come at you out of nowhere and give you little nibbles. Speaking of little nibbles, Fleur, how does Fleur go about feeding?
I imagine that her feeding would coincide with the lessons for her apprentice, Olivier. And she believes that Olivier is a wonderful apprentice. Not as though she's ever had one before, but she thinks that even still, Olivier would be her favorite. And they would go about their lesson. She would sort of be circling around him, perhaps unknowingly, predatorily, pointing out different parts of the painting. Be mindful of the light here. This area is muddy. Forms need to be defined, or else your work will look sloppy. It's important to think about what it is you want to portray in your pieces. Intent is everything. And then at the end of the lesson, she would sort of look at him expectantly as the hunger settles in her throat.
Yes, Mistress, I will endeavor to practice more. I hate so disappointing you.
She'll smile sweetly at him, taking his hand, sort of tracing the outlines of his fingertips and up his arm. You can never disappoint me. I promise you that.
He shivers, perhaps in expectation of what happens. I assume you don't let him remember, but he certainly has impressions that remain, I guess.
I will whisper to him, "Close your eyes, love." And then when his eyes settle closed, Fleur does not, for lack of a better term, there's no foreplay. She goes straight for the bite.
As you bite into his neck, there's a little bit of blood that jets out and hits the canvas just in the corner and drips down very slowly. And as you are biting him and he is sort of melting into this embrace and falling into the ecstasy of the kiss, you can't help but notice how this tiny little line of red that's just crawling down the corner of the painting was exactly what was missing in this work. Odette, how does Odette feed?
Odette, uncharacteristically, sort of, goes into the village, and she often finds a secluded area, a barn or some sort of shack, and she sort of strips down to her shimmies and sort of sings out a requiem or some hymnal in Latin, between reading scripture, just loud enough to perhaps catch an ear.
And you hear someone moving outside the barn, and as you repeat your prayers or your hymns in Latin, you see the door open and you see a young woman who's carrying a bucket, who was perhaps coming to get milk from one of the animals in the barn, steps in and sees you there kneeling, almost like Mary would have back in Bethlehem, in that barn, with that beam of moonlight coming in through one of the opened slots in the roof, falling right down on you, and seeing this vision of angelic beauty there. whispering these hymns to her. She seems enthralled and kind of entranced by what she sees. What happens next?
Odette would call to her very softly to come forward to her.
She does very hesitantly, but
once she's sort of in Odette's reach, Odette's soft about it. She is very tender and flirtatious and sort of whispering in her ear. Some things that are more salacious than others, and some things that are just scripture. And she'll kiss the woman on the lips before then going in for the bite.
do you heal your stigmata before you go and feed on a night like this?
No. She
Healing.
wants to be seen as something very Christ-like.
And this girl the next day, or perhaps weeks later, when she finally gets the courage, will perhaps tell a friend or a confidant about this vision of heaven that she encountered in the barn one night, an angel who, like Christ, had stigmatas and blood from the hands, and who sang the most beautiful song in the voice of choirs of angels, and how she felt that light come onto her until it enveloped her. What do you do after?
Odette, once she returns back to the manor, would immediately strip down and within the chapel, very aggressively and very painfully self-flagellate for hours.
As the pain helps you expiate the sin, perhaps, that you feel, there is something missing. You used to do this and would hear in response the voice of God, or at least feel God's presence telling you that you were forgiven, but it's been a long time now since that voice has truly spoken to you. And as you continue flagellating yourself here in this chapel, and the sound of the leather straps tearing through the flesh of your back reverberate wetly through this holy place, you feel very much alone. Sorry, go ahead.
I think with this feeling, she would probably carry on probably longer than she ought to. Almost like she's waiting to hear God's voice.
At some point, you hear a voice from behind you. You're not too sure, is it God's voice, is it not God's voice, but eventually you realize that it's the voice of Fleur, who has come to get you because it's time to get ready for the evening. Fleur, I've called out for Odette, but didn't get any answers, and you know how she gets after she goes out feeding, and you walk into the chapel and find her in this position.
Fleur would walk up to slowly, trying not to startle her, and she would walk up to Odette and just very, very carefully place her hand on top of Odette's as she goes to strike herself again.
She stops and slowly turns her eyes up, almost fully expecting to see God, and sees Fleur standing there over her, and is a little bit confused for a moment. But she will, allow herself to be finished with this flagellation.
Come, we must get ready.
She'll sort of nod and go to dress herself fully, and sort of mill about with Fleur as they go to work on this chapel.
A little later.
Sorry, can I?
No.
As
Yes,
they,
absolutely. Please go.
As they walk, Fleur will sort of caress Odette's back, almost in like a soothing manner, almost in a way to show her gentleness when she did not show herself gentleness. That's it.
How does Odette feel about this? How does she react?
I think at the initial touch she would flinch. But she'll slowly kind of calm and mutter something to Fleur about about Christ's love and repentance, but it's muddled. Things like that, I think, from Odette become muddled and not always easy to understand what she's saying, because she says them quickly and under her breath, but she means it with love, and you can tell that.
Fleur would nod along with her, even if she doesn't quite understand Odette all the time. She would still show that support to her to make sure that they don't feel alone while in each other's presence.
And as you continue and finish preparing the church, you will eventually find yourselves called by Aveline. Aveline will instruct the lot of you when she has the four of you assembled. She will tell you that you, of course, Odette and Fleur, are expected to attend the dinner as her daughters, and she will look at Anton and Agravain and say, you two have your orders. You will find yourselves a little later outside in the courtyard, Odette and Fleur, with Aveline and some of the servants. Anton and Agravain watching from the shadows somewhere. You will see a beautiful wagon ornamented with several religious artifacts upon it and crosses and such pull into the courtyard, and you realize there's 6 people aboard. The 4 of you, as you see this, feel a little strange inviting people of God like this into your home when you know exactly what it is that you do. Fleur, as you watch this moment happen and you look at Aveline, you see a look on her face that you haven't seen in a while. It's a look of anticipation, a look of gleefulness almost, a look of joy. There's something she's very much looking forward to. It brings back a slight memory for you. A little over a year ago in Paris. Fleur moves about the empty, darkened hall, absorbing what she's seeing. The frescoes that adorn the vaulted ceilings and the walls of this mansion are breathtaking, works of true artistic genius. The colors and compositions are, in her not inconsiderable experience, some of the very best in existence. The characters almost seem to come to life, the colors and shading combining to form a living, breathing tapestry. He's good, is he not? Asks Aveline, coming upon Fleur in total silence as usual. I've never seen his equal, whispers Fleur. Aveline points up to the top of a nearby scaffold. There, Fleur sees him, dressed in the simplest of garbs, head shaved, 2 paint brushes in his mouth, another in his hand. He lies on his back and finishes a detail on the roof. On the ceiling, rather. The room is dark, lit only by a few candles. But just as with the art, the beauty of the painter is in plain evidence. A delicate face that makes his identification as either man or woman near impossible. a sureness and economy of motion in his work that makes him more attractive than any other physical attribute might. This artist is, it seems, equal to his art. Who is he? Fleur asks, unable to tear her eyes away. His name is Geoffroy Montelier, Aveline says. Then with a thin but cruel smile, one that cuts Fleur's soul like only grief can, Aveline adds, and he's coming with us. You recall this moment a little over a year ago when Aveline's new child was chosen, and now the two of you brought him back in a carriage that was very similar to the one you see now pulling into the yard of the courtyard of the manor. You watch as four priests come out. 2 or 3 of them are just brothers. One is the actual priest of the village at Dalbert, and 2 nuns. The nuns and the other priests stay behind, but your eyes are all riveted on Brother Umberto. His appearance, as it was at last Christmas Mass, is striking. His beauty is beyond compare. You can literally feel the power of God just sort of rolling off of him, emanating off of him. He's introduced to each of you in turn. He takes your hand, Fleur, as you're introduced, and gives you a very chaste kiss just on the top of the knuckle, but doesn't seem too taken, too affected. You, however, being in his presence now, and as a Toreador, you have a little bit of a problem as a Toreador when witnessing things of incredible aesthetic beauty. You find yourself slowly becoming entranced, and I'm not going to make you roll anything. You don't lose control of your character or anything, but you absolutely just see him as this work of art. This it literally just draws you staring mouth open kind of situation. You are gone. Like, this is the weakness of your clan. You are just sort of taken by that. As you watch him, Odette, he comes to you then and is introduced to you, and he says, "Pleasure to meet you, madam." When he speaks, you are again discombobulated, because as it was at the Christmas Mass when he gave the homily, his voice is that which used to fill your life. His voice is that one that was filled with light, love, and grace, and that spoke to you and that comforted you and brought you closer to God. It fills you again with this love, this renewed fervor for the Lord. It's proof that God exists. You are taken, not quite like Fleur, but still very much entranced by this priest. You will be led back into the hall. The priests and the nuns will sit around the table. Aveline is unlike you have seen her in a long time. She is full of light, full of joy, making small talk, being the perfect hostess. It's the old Aveline that you haven't seen in years now. Just very pleasant, very kind. She gives a number of effusive praise towards the two of you. Anton and Agravain, you watch from the shadows hidden away as these beautiful people all sit around the table talking and drinking wine. I'd like to ask you now, some of you have taken Aveline's offer to go and see her earlier that night and make your case for being the one to embrace Frater Umberto. Can you tell me what it is that you said to Aveline to try and convince her that it should be you? Whoever would like to go first.
I can go first. I imagine that Fleur would have gotten on her knees in front of Aveline, taking Aveline's hand into her own, and looking up at her. Mistress, I plead with you to allow me to embrace Umberto. As your child, embracing him would strengthen our clan, our bloodline. Allowing anyone else to do so would sully the gift that has presented itself to us. He is a beauty that needs to be preserved. And she would sort of fidget with Aveline's hands, but maintaining eye contact, perhaps showing her resolve and conviction for the first time in a good long while at the Abbey. I know that I have not always pleased you, as a good child should, but let me do this for you and for myself. I can feel it. He will be the catalyst, the muse I've been waiting for. I am sorry to have disappointed you thus far, but please allow me the chance to prove my worth to you and to make you proud.
At this, she listens very intently and says, you believe then that having this Umberto under your charge would finally help the muse return to you? You've been rather poor at your work. If this were to help you, I think it would be most beneficial.
Fleur's going to nod quite fervently. There's this spark I feel upon gazing upon him at the last mass. Something that just fills me with inspiration. I think if having him close, having him as mine, as ours, I think it's exactly what I need.
You know how much your art means to me, and you know that in spite of, well, your recent failures to please me in that department, you remain my child, my favorite one. And she'll reach out and tuck a strand of your hair behind your ears. I believe it would be good to keep this priest under the control of our bloodline, so I will definitely take this under consideration.
Fleur will place a gentle kiss to Aveline's hand. Your consideration is all I ask for, mistress. Thank you.
You will depart her rooms. Who waits outside?
Odette will be waiting outside.
Odette, how comes the cleaning of the church? I hope everything will be ready for Father Adalbert.
They'll be beautiful. And
counting
I
on
know
you.
I know it will be a representative of this house, of course, and then of course of God's love.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that is what you feel, I certainly am not doing it for any sort of attention from any sort of god. I would think that by now you would have grown out of this strange little fancy of yours and realized that the superstitious nonsense is not well suited for those of our kind, but you are Malkavian. Have you come to plead your case, then, for Frater Umberto?
I have. I don't. I don't think Odette is with it enough to understand that insult. I want that very clear. I don't think she understands that Aveline was being rude.
No, that's totally fine. Just flies up there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, okay. And Odette sort of, she humbles herself, and not that she is, prideful in any sense, but she sort of understands that Aveline doesn't really believe in God and the things that Odette does, but she sort of lowers herself to Aveline's level and comes close to her, and with her hands sort of curled around her rosary, she'll say, "Now, with Brother Umberto, I do believe it would be beneficial if I were to embrace him.
Mm-hmm.
He and I have a connection."
Oh, you do?
Yes.
And what is this connection?
His voice is the voice of God. The same voice that I've heard before when I had my visions of Christ and of the Mother Mary.
I thought there was something about him. When we were at the Christmas Mass, I did see your reaction when he spoke. I felt it too. Is this what you used to feel then? It is.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is very beautiful.
It is. It is. And I believe there could be further benefit with the peasants.
Well, that is the hope. But tell me, Odette, are you not afraid that by seeking to preserve this very thing that you love so much about him, that you would perhaps in fact snuff it out? You are, after all, a fiendish creature. You are unnatural, as are the rest of us. You are perhaps yourself a god amongst these mortals, but certainly not a god in the sense that they would understand. A god that loves them and cherishes them and cares for them. You are a god that feeds on them. Are you not afraid that this would taint him somehow?
No, not with that voice. His voice is pure, and I know that if we were to share a connection further, and if I were to embrace him, that I would have the voice return to me, and together we could quell the ongoing uprisings.
You make a fine point. You are always the, well, most pious and innocent of us all. Perhaps you do in fact share a connection with him that none of us could ever have. It may indeed be beneficial. I will take it into consideration.
Thank you, mistress. And Odette will bow out and leave.
Who next would visit with Aveline?
Agravain would step into the room.
In fact, Agravain was probably there all along in the shadows.
Saying that, I'd imagine he'd step from the shadows. And as he steps from the shadows, he would laugh cruelly upon Odette's exit. Would you give such a thing to children, Aveline?
Oh, and I would be better off giving it to you, who wishes only to despoil him.
Of course I want to. But think of the benefit he would be as my ghoul. Think of the things I've already garnered from the town itself. All that knowledge just waiting to be soaked up.
Is knowledge that you wish to plunder Agravain, or something else of his?
You see through me, Aveline. But I can behave myself for some time. After I give you what you want from him, then perhaps I can take what I want from him.
Do you know, dear Agravain, when you will be as formidable as I know you can be? You will be as formidable as I know you can be the day that you realize that what you want, you take, and need not wait for permission. You hang around in the shadows, lurking, skulking about, amassing tidbits of information like a spider in the midst of a web amasses tiny little flies that it sucks dry whenever it gets a little bit hungry, but what do you accomplish with any of it? You still skulk about in the shadows like a rat. You are quite probably the one here, aside from me, of course, with the most potential, and yet you waste it hiding away, afraid to let the world see you for who you truly are. And that is the most magnificent creature that I have ever encountered. I could
Give him to me, Aveline.
I will consider
Don't make
it.
me take him.
Finally. Finally, the monster stirs.
Perhaps you misconstrue my hiding for waiting.
I take your hiding for exactly what it is. A fear that others will see who you are. To not mistake who you used to be for the true being that you are. The embrace has brought forth what was underneath, the truth at the core. You simply need to accept this and not spend your nights pining for what was lost. Embrace what was gained. You may leave me now. I will consider it.
Agravain slips back into the shadows.
Actually leave, I mean it this time. And does Anton make a plea, or does Anton not give a fuck?
Anton's thought about it a lot. He's frustrated with himself at the moment for the flights he's been feeling in his own head and doesn't feel he deserves it at the moment.
Okay, I buy that. I buy that for $1. The four of you think on this as you sit, some of you around the table, as some of you watch from the shadows. Eventually, Aveline announces the main course. By this point, the priests, except Father Umberto, are well lubricated, having drunk generously from Aveline's cellars. The nuns are sitting at their own little table in the corner over there, and while they've not been given alcohol, they have been eating. The servants bring this massive plate to the table. They have to roll it in on a little cart. They place it with some difficulty on the table. Aveline says, before we eat, I would like to raise a toast to Father Adalbert, of course, the wonderful leader of our parish and the shepherd of all our souls. We perhaps don't make it down into the church as often as we would like to, but you know that you can always count on us, that we are good Christian folk here. And she'll nod to Odette, who beams with angelic presence. And of course, the church has an ally in our home. Frater Umberto, I am certain you've noticed the effect that you've had on our people, not just here, but in the village. And I do look forward to the day when you lead this flock. I believe that you have a gift. There's something in you that certainly has stirred some of us here. And she looks at her two daughters. But I believe you can do the same for the village. I am humbled that you've accepted my invitation tonight for dinner, and without further ado, I believe we should feast. And she motions, and the servants pull up the cover of this thing, and what you see when they pull up the cover is the dead body of a man, burnt, his entire flesh wrinkled and cracked and mottled by fire, lying there stark naked on his back amongst a pile of vegetables and other meats and cheeses that are just sort of overflowing from this this plate that's in the middle of the table. The priests react immediately with horror. Father Umberto stares at this, almost sort of transfixed. The lot of you smell this the smell of decomposing flesh, of rotting flesh in your nose. Aveline starts to laugh. She just laughs completely manically. The Father Adalbert gets up and says, "What is the meaning of this?" They're all signing themselves and intoning prayers in Latin. I would like to know, what do you do in this particular moment as Aveline is simply laughing her head off, and the priests and the nuns are starting to panic, and Umberto is sort of just transfixed, staring at this particular feast that has been laid before them. What is Odette? What is her reaction?
Odette's moving towards the two priests, and she's signing and is trying to maybe move them towards her and have them exit the room, almost as to say, "It's okay, Odette's here. I'll protect you with God."
They kind of react to you with a mixture of fear and, like, you know, you do kind of have that presence and so on, and you're sort of very innocent looking and all that, so they're not too sure. But at the same time, like, you know, they're clutching their rosaries, and one of them's got his cross up, and they're just like sort of not too sure sort of how to take you. What is Fleur doing in this particular instance?
I think Fleur would try to calm Father Delbert, maybe. Maybe try to use one of her powers on him. Try to maybe use awe on him.
Okay.
To get everyone to settle down. Yeah, she would probably go up to him and, Father, please. It's all right. No harm will come to you. And she will try to
use the power. His lips are spewing Latin, but his eyes are saying, "This is pretty fucking far from all right." Agravain and Anton, are you holding? Are you moving? What are you doing?
I feel like at this point, with Aveline laughing, Anton would take the time to, not excruciatingly quickly, but with purpose, walk to put himself in front of the door. As measure of if anyone's coming this way, you have to deal with him. He doesn't really have much emotion in this moment. His mind is set on business, and it's about to start.
And Agravain.
Agravain, you would see a hand creep from out of the shadows nearby to where they sat and would snatch the closest priest to him by the neck, drawing him in.
As you do that, you pull one of the priests, so that you see one of the priests that you were trying to calm down just disappear, get sort of absorbed by the shadows behind him. Agravain, this priest sort of turns to look at you, and he goes, "Why in the name of God would you do this? Have some grace, have some pity, please."
Agravain's kind of holding him out by the neck, and he's watching him struggle wordlessly. And as he's saying these things, he's beginning to peel away his mask and reveal the monster to this priest.
He starts calling out, "Satanas, Satanas," and he's looking for his rosary beads and sort of trying to intone some prayers, but he's clearly, the fear has completely gripped him, and you literally see God just leave this man. Odette, one of the priests, has disappeared. The other one sees this and starts to panic, and now you can tell that he's really kind of on edge. Fleur, you stand up and talk to Adalbert, who, entranced by you as you let the power of your blood sort of wash over him, he becomes almost kind of like a snake, charmed, like he's just sort of standing there vacillating and looking at you. Aveline says, "Father Adalbert, what is it that you like to say?" "Ah, yes, the body of Christ." And as he says that, the body that was on the table, the burnt, rotting body that was on the table, stands up screaming, reaches out, grabs the priest Adalbert, the older priest, right from in front of you. His eyes don't leave you. He's so entranced by you, Fleur, as he's pulled by this creature that you now see as this distended jaw with huge fangs, and just literally bites into the face of this old priest. Blood starts to just gush everywhere. Anton, what do you do?
At this point, seeing the violence has commenced, I think Anton would make eyes towards the table full of the nuns. His goal would be to pull out his dagger and end them quickly. As quickly as possible, running to them and one by one grabbing them and slitting their throats.
Agravain, what do you do?
I'm paused for a moment after revealing the horror of myself to this man, and I'm watching him panic and call for his god. And for a moment, I'm almost transfixed by this, and I kind of go, like, I leave myself, and you can see it in my eyes for a minute. And I'm flashing back to things that I had seen in my past. And when I finally snap to, it's when I hear the screams of this priest who's dying. And it's almost like I come back into myself, and I say to this priest, "There is no God here to listen to you. I shall make the finest chalice of your throat." And he's gonna pull him in and sink his teeth into him.
His screams are cut by a wet gurgle as more blood spills into the room. The nuns are being cut down by Anton, yet more blood. All of you are just smelling all this blood, and it's a good thing you fed, because it's just driving you crazy, and it's all you can do really to stop yourselves. Meanwhile, Aveline is just laughing, cackling throughout all this. The creature that was served to them on the plate is just gnawing down on this priest's face. In moments, it's over. The nuns are dead. The priests are dead. There's blood everywhere. It's all the lot of you can do not to just sort of lose your minds standing around the table. There's just Brother Umberto sitting there, apparently entranced in some way by Aveline as he just sits there staring at this carnage that's around him, this charnel house that has suddenly, in moments, erupted all around him. You're all standing around, your feet are now stepping in blood wherever you go. There's that smell of an abattoir that just fills the entire room, and it is both invigorating and maddening at the same time. As you sort of take in all of this, which happened incredibly quickly, all this death, all this savagery was over in a matter of moments. The servants screamed and just got out of the room. The only sound that's left now is the sound of this creature that was on the table, just still gnawing away at the dead priest Adalbert on the ground. Fleur, as you watch this, you recognize Geoffroy, the other child of Aveline, as this strange, burnt-looking creature. This is what Aveline's been doing all these nights. He's just mad. When you look into his eyes, you just see dark pits of madness, and he's just munching on this priest.
I imagine that Fleur would step back from Geoffroy, almost in a realization that this could have been her. And she will sort of back away from him, and subsequently Aveline as well, and look upon the carnage that they have all wrought.
And what is Odette doing?
Odette's pretty upset by this. She thought that this would be a good moment for her to meet these priests and do some of God's work and find his voice once more. She's standing near Umberto, and she's making the sign of the cross, of course, and praying as she sort of looks up to Aveline and then back to this creature before her. And she's very confused as to what has just happened. It's almost like she's still sort of processing everything in her mind, and however that looks, and she's not quite connecting things together.
Your derangement is probably kicking in a little bit, and you're starting to feel that state of fugue starting to take over you. After a moment, Aveline, still cackling, will walk around behind Brother Umberto, will look at all of you and say, well, I must admit, most of you made very good arguments as to why you should be the one to embrace this priest. Her voice is just this kind of devoid now of all this sort of weirdness and madness and cackling that was there before. It was very difficult to decide, and in fact, I've not quite been able to decide who should get to embrace him, so I thought perhaps I would let you decide. And she wraps her head around Umberto's forehead and slides her hand down, and as she does, all the orifices in his face, his eyes, his nose, his mouth, all close up, all become seamless flesh. He gets this completely featureless visage as she drags all the excess flesh down into his neck, and you see it all kind of melting into the flesh that's there. He starts struggling as he can't breathe anymore. And she says, "Which one of you will embrace him now?" "Oh, I admit he's not as pretty as he used to be. And if you embrace him now, this is how he will remain for all eternity. But if you don't embrace him, in the next few moments, he will die, suffocating. Which one of you would like to make him your child?"
Odette's going to look at Fleur and very pointedly will say, "While he might not have Christ's voice, I will have his connection."
You wish to have him then, Odette?
I do.
You're crazy enough to want this, I know that. Well, come and take him. He's right there.
She's going to look at Fleur for just like a beat.
Fleur feels like this is a trap. Fleur feels like this is a trick. And you see her eyes just like almost shake, like almost pleading with you to not. She feels something deep in her core that something bad will happen.
In this sort of like dissociative, almost getting into that fugue state, would Odette have the capacity to see that from Fleur?
I'm going to say I think so, because I think you are very attuned to Fleur. I mean, ultimately, it's up to you to decide. But I think if you want her to notice, I think she would. But I will let you decide where you want to go with that.
I agree. I think that no matter, despite this type of moment that Odette is in, I think that she's not quite in a fugue state. I don't think that she's quite there yet. So I think that she would see that in Fleur and get very scared suddenly and sort of look to Aveline and slowly back away and run into, or sort of jaunt over into Fleur's arms in fear.
Have you changed your mind? Imagine that, the Malkavian changing their mind. Anybody else?
I think from the shadows where Agravain is already quickly returned, you just hear laughter.
You've always all been such utter disappointments. You think I fear the peasants? You think I need to placate those blood bags? They are cattle. That is all they are. And any of you think any different will not last long in the night. She presses her hand to Umberto's chest, and you feel the bones crack, and you see him shake, and you understand that she's pressing the bones and forming them into a spike that goes right through his heart, and you see his chest kind of concave in. And eventually he stops moving and slumps down into the chair, this faceless, featureless man. That was once so remarkable. Aveline goes over, pats Geoffroy's head, says, "My good boy, you did very good." She looks up at Anton. "You did good too. Now get rid of these bodies correctly."
At once.
She grabs Geoffroy, lifts him up gently, very gently. He's still gnawing on a piece of the priest. She's like, "You don't need this anymore." And she takes it away from him and she drops it on the priest. Come, my good boy. Yes, you're the best one of the lot. And she guides him away. The doors open and she walks away out of the hall. The four of you are left standing there amidst this carnage, this blood, this savagery. What will each of you do?
I think watching this, Agravain comes out of the shadows. He knows he has to help Anton take bodies to burn, but as he does this, he passes very closely to Floor, and he leans into her. Are you not Mother's favorite anymore?
Flora will lock eyes with Agravain. I never was.
Pity. And then he's going to look over to Odette. What is Odette doing right now, Bones?
She's kind of like curled into Fleur, and just sort of holding on to her.
Oh, the Lord works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? And he's gonna pass by the two of them and begin to collect bodies with Anton.
When Agravain speaks to Fleur, to Odette, Fleur's going to like cover her ears, trying to shield her from whatever harsh words he would say to her.
Odette looks at Agravain and as he goes to collect bodies, and through her fear of Agravain and interest in what she knows of him, it's a strange look you get from her face. She's narrowing her eyes, and you don't normally see this from Odette. She's very doe-eyed and kind of sort of lapsdaisical, and she looks at Agravain and she'll say, "Don't forget, I know you."
I know you.
You never told me if you would help.
Agravain ignores her and starts collecting bodies.
Flora will look upon Umberto now, finding some sort of irony in the fact that his form now so much resembles the painting she had been working on of him, the sort of featureless paintings that she just couldn't quite get right.
They do indeed. They do indeed resemble.
I think Anton, as soon as he was told to dispose of the bodies, would have immediately begun stacking them, pulling them out. He hears the conversation going on between the other three, but he doesn't much care. He, at this point, feels a little bit better about himself, about his situation. Even a pittance of adulation paid was enough to make him not question what he needs to do now. And he just begins working, stacking bodies, and trying to figure out the best way to get rid of them.
As you pile up these bodies, start taking them away, Flora and Odette are clinging to each other and trying to perhaps make sense of this madness that just erupted. Odette will hear very softly from the shadows nearby. Odette, it is time for us to speak. And on that note, we will take our break right here and now, so that Creep can go and remove all of that and catch a bit of a breath. Everybody okay? Everybody good?
Joke's on you. I just sulk around in the shadows of my own house.
All the time. What we usually get is the disguised Creep. Tonight Creep's just letting it all hanging out. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Hey, Duro, thanks for coming in. Kurt also was on in here in Vancouver City by Night earlier. A bunch of people, thanks so much for hanging out. We got up to some madness. We're going to take a little break here, about 5 minutes. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. And thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you to my players who were absolutely fantastic, all of you. So we will be right back. Catch you in a few. have returned, refreshed, after feeding on peasants. Peasant blood, it's good blood.
Nom, 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 nom.
Nom nom. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Super appreciate it. I am here with a group of very awesome, lovely, talented people. I just threw something a little bit weird and kind of strange at them. So we'll get to see here in a moment exactly how the characters are reacting to this. In the meantime, while Anton and Agravain were off getting rid of the bodies, Odette would have heard from Santiago from the shadows, who would have said that he may have an option for you, a way for you out of this if you want it, and that you should perhaps hurry and meet him, and you won't wait until he had originally said just before dawn, but he says it's probably imperative that we meet now, and he will say that he feels that with what Aveline has just done, once the villagers don't see the priests returning, they're probably kind of going to get a little bit curious about what's happened, and it might cause some issues. So he will say, gather as many of your friends, your coterie as you can, and come and meet me at the broken tower. And so, just in the interest of time here a little bit, I will say that you will go around and talk to everyone. I'll give you each an opportunity to sort of tell us how you do it, but you will find yourselves at the broken tower maybe an hour later or so, waiting on Santiago to arrive. So who is there? Who actually does go to this little impromptu meeting out in the middle of the forest?
Should I tell you that Odette's there?
Well, yeah, if Odette goes. I mean, they can decide not to go.
No, she does. She does in fact go.
Okay.
Flora is there as well. She is glued to Odette's side at this point.
Anton is there, but he's not making his presence overwhelmingly known. He's just kind of hanging back, pulling his best Agravain.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of in the shadows, but he's not good enough at it to actually not be seen. So he's back there, but
Glowering.
he's hoping. Yeah.
Agravain is there. He certainly does not make his presence known. He's actually standing just beyond Anton in the shadows, in the darkness,
Okay.
waiting.
He's standing
to
in
hear
Anton's
what's said.
shadow.
Yeah.
Special a reminder. Oh, my Zoom just messed up there for a second. Am I still here? Am I still alive? Do I still
You're
matter?
Yes.
If I fall in the forest, does anyone care? Just as a reminder, perhaps to the audience, Santiago was another vampire who had stayed at the manor perhaps a decade or so ago, was friends with Aveline's sire, and so had sought refuge there at her home. During his stay there, he had forged very specifically a strong bond with Odette, as he was a very learned man, had traveled a lot, knew a lot about religion, and spoke about it very eloquently and all that. And so you had forged a good bond. And last session that we played, he returned to you after several years and said that he wished to speak to you and that he had something to propose. And now you realize probably that it has something to do with the madness that seems to have sort of seized Aveline. It is very clear that what Aveline has done has endangered you all, because now, when none of the priests return from your manor, the peasants, who were already kind of like the villagers, who were already kind of feeling, their oats a little bit, are very likely to get very interested in sort of what happened to the priests. So she certainly put you all in danger with her reckless action. However, you still have the blood bond, which, given the recent actions, probably doesn't have as much of a hold on you as normal, but it's still there. Like you would find it difficult to take action against her or anything like that. So you find yourselves out in the forest. There is an old watchtower that is kind of broken down, and it's just kind of an open space that is sort of hidden from view a little bit. Some of you have certainly used this as a place for feeding, perhaps, or to sort of get away from other people and whatnot. You find yourselves there waiting for Santiago, and I will say Odette and Fleur are there, sort of clinging to each other, and Anton is sort of looming in the shadows nearby. Do you wish to do anything while you wait, or before you wait? Not before you wait, but before he shows up.
Odette is I would imagine Anton is visible to Odette and Fleur.
Yes.
Odette is sort of like looking back at him and is a little bit surprised and wary of his presence. And she will look to Fleur and whisper to her very quietly, Do you think that Anton is going to tell Aveline that we are here?
Does Anton look as imposing as he normally does when he's sort of acting as Aveline's guard dog?
At the moment, yes.
Flora is going to look at Odette. Well, he is here too, is he not?
Yes, but I don't know if his purpose is the same as ours, and I get nervous that perhaps after what happened with the priest, and you see Odette sort of ramble along, and she's sort of getting a little bit more upset as she speaks.
Flora's going to grab Odette's hands, at least with one hand, and then she's going to grab your chin with the other and force you to focus. It will be fine, Odette. Calm yourself.
Odette, clasps her rosary with one hand and sort of leans in closer to Fleur and sort of nestles, her face into the crook of her neck. As she every so often will glance back to Anton nervously.
Excuse me. Anton, every time you kind of glance back, Anton will lock eyes with you. He knows that you're kind of looking back at him. He doesn't make any movement towards you, but you do get that death stare every time you kind of lock eyes with him for a few moments. He seems maybe even a little more imposing than normal, emboldened by his recent compliment.
I don't like that.
Anybody else wish to do or say anything before? So you wait patiently, not very long. Eventually, perhaps Agravain will be the first to notice, but you see shadows moving in one of the corners, and Santiago steps out of one of them. And it's very different than Agravain when he does. Agravain appears to have always been there. Santiago appears as if he just kind of materialized out of the shadows. He is a tall, very elegant man with dark skin and closely cropped hair. He's dressed in very, very fine clothes. He steps out into the moonlight where the lot of you are, and immediately sees Odette, and he's like, Odette, I am so glad you made it. And he comes over and we'll take your hand and give you a warm, it will hold your hand warmly, rather is what I should say. Are you okay? I didn't quite see everything that happened in that room, but I saw the aftermath of it, and it seemed quite horrible.
In sort of a fit, she almost bursts into tears immediately and will sort of cling away from Fleur and onto Santiago as this like a second source of comfort, and cry to him what had happened.
It is horrible, but it is also very reckless. The people in the village are already on the verge of reacting to all of this. I'm so sorry, Odette. You had to go through this. What has become of Aveline? She used to be, well, she used to be a lovely person. She certainly seems to have found a new darkness in her. I've seen some of her brethren of the night do dark things, but there is something very unsettling about her madness. Has she been this way long?
Fleur will speak up. Only recently. Especially with the arrival of her new child. Geoffroy, I don't know if you saw him or not.
I saw something with her, but it is a terrible state of affairs. Agravain, you'll notice there's somebody else coming. There's somebody else that's moving and kind of coming by towards the door and just sort of waiting there in the shadows.
Do I know who they are?
No, they're definitely kindred. Appears to be a woman dressed in very simple clothes, almost kind of like a monk's robes, almost cinched at the waist with a cowl that's not over her head. She has dark hair in a bun. She seems very unexceptional. She has a bit of a big pouch sort of hanging at her side. Do you wish to do anything or wait and see?
I'm gonna continue to wait and see.
As you keep an eye on sort of what's going, Santiago will say, I hoped that it wouldn't come to this, but I've feared from some of the letters that we've exchanged in the past few years, Odette, that things were not well here, that you were perhaps not, well, you'd never stated it very clearly, but I could read between the lines. You certainly didn't feel as if this place was what it used to be. I realize now that all of you are prisoners in some way of Aveline, and I can't stress enough how reckless her actions were tonight. She had people the church considers very important killed. It may not seem this way. The church is, to a large degree, aware of our kind and what we do, and they do have soldiers, people trained to fight the likes of us. They do not oppose us as much as they could, but they certainly could change their ways, and the actions of your lady tonight certainly have put you all in danger. I have a friend I would like you to meet if it's okay with you. And he will motion over to the entrance and will say, Reina, please, Reina, come. And you'll see this woman that I described a little bit earlier come by. He says, this is Reina Lindworm. She is a friend of mine. I met her in Constantinople. She has certain knowledge that I think may be useful to you. Now, I would like to make an offer to you, Odette, but also to your coterie, your friends. I realize perhaps some of you may not be willing or able, in fact, to stand up to Aveline. But what I see are people in bondage. I see kindred who are unable to live their lives as they would want to live it, to pursue their dreams and aspirations, who are kept chained by this mad woman and by the power of the blood bond. What I offer to you tonight, if you want it, is freedom. I offer you freedom from this bondage that she holds over you. I offer you the ability to extricate yourselves from under her claw. I will not lie to you. This opportunity comes with a certain cost. There are dangers, but I will share them with you if you are interested. I've seen this kind of madness before in other kindred, and it will only get worse. She will not get better. She will not go back to the way she was. Eventually, she will get to a point where only the blood of other kindred will be able to support her. I believe this is why she keeps you all around. She knows that very soon she will need kindred blood to survive, that human blood will no longer be enough for her. Are you ready to hear what I have to offer, or would you prefer to walk away? There's no shame in that, but I bring you a measure of salvation.
Odette will nod and look back at Fleur and say, we would hear this, right, Fleur, right?
There's been a sentence running in Fleur's head, and it's what Agravain had said to her about not being Mother's favorite. And she realized that all that she has done in order to appease Aveline, in order to get Aveline's approval, in order to get her praise, her love, none of it was ever going to work. It was something that was unattainable. And she'll look at Odette, and then look to Santiago, and she'll nod.
Ever since Santiago said the line that we were prisoners, Anton stopped pacing. He stopped moving from side to side. His overall presence became a little less imposing. If you see him kind of going through his head of all the times and all the situations, and kind of starting to put pieces together that even though he thought he was doing what was right, he was still a prisoner all over again, as he had been so many times before. And then you'll watch the duplicitous nature of his brain starts kicking in, and he starts digging his fingernails back into his hands, causing himself pain. He shouldn't have these thoughts. And he just kind of sits there in limbo and listens.
There is a way to prevent the power that she draws from the blood bond she holds over you from staying in your hands. My companion, Reyna, her clan count amongst them a number of wizards. They have, over time, developed certain rituals. She can help make you, strengthen you against the power of the bloodbound for a short period of time. Now, you have to understand that a kindred of Aveline's age is a frightful thing indeed. Her power is more than any of ours. Only if we act together would we be able to overcome her. I also believe that it will be difficult to stake her, which is what we need to do to prevent her from defending herself. We need her alive, so to speak. Once we have managed to incapacitate her, and with the lot of you free momentarily from the shackles of the blood bond, we will be able to enact another ritual that will allow us to, once and for all, ensure that Aveline is no longer there to haunt you, no longer able to hold control over you, no longer able to call on the power of the blood bond to force you to her will. You will find once the blood bond has been lifted that many of the emotions you may feel about Aveline that are not allowed to rise to the surface, negative emotions about her, will come flooding through, and it may be difficult to keep control of yourselves, but it is also important that what we do, we all do together. What we are set on doing, the only way we can truly liberate you, will mark us. It's too dangerous for only one of us to do. We all have to partake in the sin in order that we may alleviate some of its weight. But I promise you that when the moment for action comes, you will be free of her control and her power over you. And in that moment, you will feel the fear and the anger that has been hidden inside of you about the things she has done and what she has become. And you will feel empowered to act. Are you willing to do this?
Immediately, Odette nods and looks to Fleur and sort of is begging her with that glance.
Fleur will look to Odette and then to Anton.
Anton's going to look at Santiago, look at Odette, kind of lock eyes with Fleur as he sees her staring at him, kind of pacing back and forth a little bit, looking up. You can see he's fighting with it in his mind. And then for the briefest of moments, as he's locking eyes with Fleur, she will see him kind of just shake his head no, and then turn to walk away.
She will call out to him.
He will keep walking.
Please.
As Anton turns to walk away, Agravain, who's been standing in the shadows behind him, reaches out and catches him by the shoulder and makes him pause in his tracks. And he gets closer to him. And as he approaches him, he's gonna say, "A man once told me that it is a foolish thing to worship only one God." And as he says this, he's pacing around Anton, and the hand that was touching his shoulder is going to lift this pale, gnarled, horrible-looking hand, and it's gonna graze the scar on your face. "Where has your fight gone, Anton?"
In a moment of shock, Anton will just kind of drop his guard, his everything. He's, over the time, the burnings, the one person he was somewhat open to was Agravain. And as realization slowly dawns on him, he is going to very quickly go from staring directly ahead to staring you straight in the face. A long pause and silence as he's just in shock, and you can start to see his lip quiver. His hands are shaking. There is a pent-up amount of rage and aggression building up behind him. And he just kind of looks over at Santiago, looks straight back at you, Agravain, and just starts to walk away.
Santiago says, will he stand against us?
You'll tell her he's a good dog.
We'll handle it when the time comes. If the rest of you are committed then, and he looks over at Reyna, and she produces from her bag a coil of red twine. She produces a little golden knife that has different runes carved along the blade. She whispers words, ancient arcane words under her breath as she cuts lengths of this red twine, and hands one to each of you. Hands one to Santiago also, and cuts one for herself. She says, this will protect you from the power of the Bloodbound, but as Aveline is a very powerful kindred, it will only afford you a brief period of time. You should wear it thusly around your neck, and she ties it around her neck. At the moment when you wish to be free of the power of the bond, you must whisper the name of the one who owns the bond on you and break the cord, at which time you will feel the power of the bond lessen, though perhaps not go away completely. It will return fairly quickly, so whatever you must do, you should do it quickly at that point. Santiago will go around and pull from another sort of oilcloth wrap that he's got. He's got a number of wooden stakes. We need Aveline to still be alive, as I was saying. For the ritual to work, we will need to find her heart and pierce it with a stake so that she is incapacitated. I believe Aveline may have found a way to move her heart inside her body. We will all need to strike different places inside her chest to make sure that at least one of us gets it, and he hands out the stakes to each of you. Once we have managed to incapacitate her, Reyna will begin the ritual. You must keep control of yourselves at that point, even if you feel the beast raging and wanting to be let out. You need to struggle and to keep it at bay for what's to come. Once the ritual is enacted, then, well, do you have any questions? We should go. I believe that we need to take care of this tonight before the sun comes up. By dawn, if they haven't already, the villagers will be rather restless. If you feel the urge to help Aveline, the urge to run away or not act, break the string. It will give you respite for a few moments. He comes over to you, Odette. He says, You need to be strong, little one. I know this is a lot to ask one such as yourself. Do you think you can go through this?
Odette looks between Santiago and her rosary, and then staring at him, she blinks a few times and says, "If it is for Christ, then it is worth doing. And I believe that this is for Christ."
I believe that while we are all blights in the sight of God, those like Aveline are even worse. I do not believe that God would countenance such a creature to exist on his world. It is up to us to cleanse it. As the lot of you prepare to return to the manor, Anton, you are heading back up along the road. What do you intend to do?
As Anton's walking, breathing, he can't help but feel Santiago and Agravine were both right. Where did his fight go? It can't be right. He's taken care of him. She's protected him. Given him everything he needed. But if that was true, why was he feeling this way? He kind of continues walking, his pace and gait slowed way down. Drops to a knee and just slams the ground as hard as he can with his hand. Completely and utterly devastated, confused, and has no idea what to do at the moment. He will attempt to gather himself and begins walking back, not entirely sure of his intention. But as his brain keeps working through everything, if they're wrong, why do they feel so right?
Your thoughts are interrupted as you approach the manor when you see flames, you see fire, you see that a portion of the manor is burning. You hear screams inside, you see figures moving against the light in the shadows, voices shouting, and the flames rising up into the night.
He would immediately quicken his pace and try to find out what's happening.
The rest of you, as you are approaching the manor, similarly see fire raging. You immediately feel that intrinsic fear, that kindred fear when faced with fire. It's still quite a ways off, but it is your home that is burning right now. You can hear people inside screaming, the sounds of fighting. You know that Aveline has several defenses. She has ghoul servants. She has strange abominations that live in the basement that can be unleashed. And you hear this sound of this fight going. And as you approach, you can see more and more villagers pouring in from the village. They are carrying pitchforks and torches and axes and shovels and anything that they could get their hands on. And they have breached the walls of the manor as you sort of approach it. Santiago says, "I didn't think they would attack already. I thought they would wait till the morning." What do all of you do?
Do I see that the chapel is being burned at all?
In fact, you see that it is not.
Oh, good.
It's the important
Thank
things,
God.
right?
Thank God.
I do want to point out, by the way, sorry, that T-Cat gave you guys a 100 bits earlier, so I will say that there's a advantage in the pool that any one of you can use if ever you need it. Just because, it might become important in a minute.
There's...
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to
There's
say
a passageway leading up to my rooms. We could use to get into the building.
Odette's gonna look at Agravain's with us, correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Odette's gonna look at Agravain, and you see a hesitant helplessness in her. As she sort of motions for you to take lead.
For me to take lead?
She's a weak little baby. She's looking for someone strong.
Do I see Anton?
I don't know, Anton, if you rushed in.
I wouldn't be inside. I don't know that Anton has a lot of courage, but right now with his mental capacity and seeing fire flying everywhere, he wouldn't be the first one running in that building.
So I would say you see him perhaps skulking outside the walls, sort of hiding on the edge of the forest, hesitating. You see that he does seem like he wants to go in perhaps, but is holding back for whatever reason.
I'm going to look to Santiago. The dog seems hesitant. Do you have another one of those strings?
He looks over and Lenvern will pull out another piece of the rope and cut it, whisper words again over it, and hand it to you.
Agravain takes it, and he's gonna head towards Anton now. Basically just ignoring whatever Odette said.
Poor Odette.
Say anything. She's kind of like,
and he's gonna come up to Anton and, without his permission, attempt to tie the rope around his neck, like all the others have it tied to them.
At first feeling this, Anton's going to snap very quickly to turn around and kind of see what's happening. Seeing Agravain and then looking to see that they all have him tied around their neck. In the situation he's currently in mentally, he's going to allow you to tie it, but as you're doing it, you're going to hear the words, "You and I are far from finished."
Don't be foolish, Anton. Just know that if you change your mind, you break this cord and you say her name, it'll break your bond, it'll give you time. But we're going in there to deal with her, with or without you.
Yes, time will tell who lives and who dies.
I hope to see you on the other side. You are, in fact, a good dog.
And some will somewhat snarl at that, but not really jump at it too hard.
Agravain's gonna look back to the others and motion them forward.
Before they walk in, Odette's gonna look at Fleur and kind of grip her hand and say, "You are my warrior. Are you not?"
Harm will come to you. No harm will come to us.
Agravain's gonna wait for them to approach, and when they do, he's gonna look to Fleur for her passage in. I assume he might already know this passage just because he's Agravain and what he does is sulks around in passages, but
The garret where your apartments are quite high up in the tower and are probably right now the best sort of, the furthest point away from the flames, except from the chapel. But Aveline wouldn't go in there, so you think there's probably a reasonable chance that she will be somewhere up there. You will find your way towards a spot where Fleur will guide you to an area in the back of the house where there is a door that is dissimulated behind a fake column that supports part of the wall. As you enter inside, you find yourselves in a very narrow stairwell that leads up. You can smell the smoke. You can smell the fire that is already consuming this building. The fact that it's made of stone is really the only reason why it hasn't like completely gone up in flames. That you hear people dying outside. You can smell the blood even through the walls, as you know that there are countless people that are being killed outside right now in the courtyard. You go up the stairs. You arrive at the end of the stairwell to a small door, and then there's a little corridor that goes down, and you know, Fleur, that this leads to another point further down the corridor that you can enter. But this particular door leads into your chambers themselves. You do see candlelight that's sort of under the door, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything, as the servants might have lit candles in your room anyways before tonight. Where would you like to go? Would you like to go through this door? Would you like to go through the door further down that leads further into the corridor?
I will turn to the rest of the group, pressing my hand against the door in front of us. This one leads into my chambers, but further down will lead us even further.
Where do you believe her to be? That's where we go.
I think she would be at the furthest point, no? She would not face all of them at once. She would rather watch them burn slowly.
I think you're right.
So you move further down the corridor. You push open the door, and this section of the wall sort of moves slightly and allows you to step out. You're down a long corridor that leads to a set of stairwell that sort of goes down. From downstairs, you can hear the sound of fighting. You can, as I was saying earlier, smell the smoke. You see that there are blood trails that certainly someone has dragged a bloody body along this corridor. And it in fact goes all the way back to where you were originally, and leads into Fleur's rooms, the garret. What would you like to do?
Fleur would like to go investigate why there's bloody trails leading into her chambers.
You will walk down the corridor, aware of the sound of fighting outside and aware that what you're doing is incredibly dangerous. You push open the door to your room. You find in the room a number of bodies, villagers, a few of them, broken, ripped apart, completely savaged and destroyed. You see many of your paintings also destroyed, disfigured, trashed, shredded apart. You don't see any sign of Aveline in here, but it's clear that someone has been in here and has kind of unleashed their rage on what's here. You figure they've fed on these bodies and replenished their supply of blood, and then just basically went completely crazy and mad and just destroyed everything, almost as if there was a very specific hatred of you. Almost, it was an attempt to sort of destroy everything that you'll do. You see all these paintings that you have, all these Madonnas that resemble the dead have been shredded. You see these sketches that you'd been making for the roof, the ceiling of the chapel that you'd been hiding from everyone, just shredded apart, ripped to pieces, scattered all over. But you don't see sign of your sire anywhere in the room.
Seeing all of her paintings ruined, Fleur will sort of look to the rest of the group, repeating something that Aveline had said to her. There's no beauty in something that cannot be destroyed. And then she will start to move further down the corridor again.
You arrive at doors that you, Anton, know well. They're the doors where most nights you end up being shackled outside. The lot of you have seen before the ring that's in the wall, very big, metal, very strong. The length of chain that leads to a collar that often you may have seen Anton wearing. The doors that lead to the private corner of the manor that belongs to Aveline are open. On the ground, you see the body of a woman that you, Anton, you recognize as one of the women that is Aveline's handmaids, perhaps. Her body is twisted and misshapen. Her face kind of strangely twisted around. She lies very obviously dead on the ground in a pool of blood. The smell of blood is starting to get to all of you, and you're starting to feel very on edge about it. The fire outside, the people, the fighting that's going on, and all this carnage and this blood. It's starting to get to all of you, and right now you're still kind of in control of yourself because you fed earlier, and you're still able to manage it, but you're starting to feel like you're getting close to sort of an edge point where you may need to start fighting for control of yourself. As you go down, continue to go down this corridor, there are several sets of doors. When you open them, you see one after the other several rooms, all of which are essentially torture rooms. Different implements. You see bodies hanging here and there, sometimes just parts of bodies. You see torture implements that would make Torquemada fucking blush. Like, there is a depravity and a darkness and a violence and a bestiality in these rooms that sets you on edge. The blood is old and dry. This has been going on for some time. You see throughout all these rooms the evidence of Aveline's madness. The bodies are twisted, transformed. As you saw outside, the bodies that were fused together, there's all sorts of weird sort of these bodies treated like clay almost, and just sort of fashioned however Aveline wanted. Eventually you see the doors to the final room at the end are also ajar, and you hear low singing coming from it, almost kind of like someone singing a lullaby perhaps to a child or something like that under their breath. But it's strong enough that it's kind of coming down the corridor towards where you are. What would you like to do?
Do we recognize the voice that's singing?
Oh yeah, it sounds like Aveline, yeah.
Okay.
Upon
Okay.
hearing, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Upon hearing the voice, Anton would do what he can to make the golden cord not visible, tucking it under his shirt.
Yeah, the red string, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, the red.
Yeah, no, so the knife was golden, but yeah, it's fine. I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're dropping. You approach the door.
And Anton would.
Santiago
will follow behind.
Santiago pulls out his stake and he's like, "Be ready if it's her. She will not give us much of a chance to act."
Fleur will ready her stake as well.
Agravain does the same.
Odette also does the same.
You approach the door. Whoever's in the lead gently opens it. You find that the room has been completely remodeled in a way that you've never seen before. None of you have ever been in this room. The room has been rebuilt to resemble a chapel. There's a vaulted ceiling. There are frescoes painted all around. There is an altar. There is a crucifix hanging on the wall. There are candles burning throughout the room. Stained glass windows all around. It resembles nothing so much as a very, very beautiful chapel. But as you walk in and start to look at the frescoes and the paintings that are here, they are mockeries of Christian paintings. They depict scenes of madness. They depict devils. They depict acts of violence, acts of sexual depravity, acts of cannibalism, all sorts of madness-inducing visions. Many of them show you, the group of you, in different situations, usually being tortured by demons and devils, but oftentimes also being torturers themselves. The feel of madness that emanates from this room is quite something. And in the middle of the room, you find Aveline, who is cradling something and sort of singing quietly to it. And when you enter the room, she sort of cocks her head over and she turns around, and you see that she's holding a deformed head that she's cradling to her chest, kind of like a baby. And she turns towards a lot of you and she says, "Well, have you come to afflict me, or have you come to save me? Knowing the lot of you, it's probably not going to be a very effective rescue." And she takes the head and lops it, and it hits the ground and it rolls thump, 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 and stops just at your feet. You don't recognize it. It's some random villager. Its eyes are staring at you with this deep-seated fear. She looks at you and just stands there and smiles, and you feel this overwhelming love for her just sort of well inside of you. You feel your blood start to boil, and just this passion that you feel for her, this power that she has over you, is just starting to envelop you. It's starting to make you regret everything you've done tonight. It's starting to make you feel like you should be kneeling down, like you should be begging for her forgiveness. She is the only one. She is the goddess of your world. She is your mother. She is the one who gives you life, who sustains you. And you feel that power wrapping around you, almost like a chain that is just crushing you down. And as it crushes you, you love it. You love every second of it. You want more of it.
Going to tug the cord and whisper Aveline's name.
Odette does the same.
Yeah, Agravain does the same.
Anton will reach and pull the cord, but not quite all the way out. He looks like he's hesitating, having trouble pulling it.
Let's give a little initiative roll just to see in what order we will go on. So everyone roll a d10. Highest will go first. If you have celerity, like I believe Mornian has celerity, if you have celerity, your number of celerity dots are extra actions you get to take each turn.
Okay.
I rolled a 9.
I have a 5.
I rolled a 1.
I rolled a 4.
Let me just make quick notes here. Anton, you had?
5.
Agravain?
A 9.
9. 1 for Fleur.
Yes.
And 4 for Odette. All right. Oh. Santiago was at 1 also. Okay. And Aveline. when you look at her, you see she has gone completely feral. Her hands are deformed claws. Her fangs are enlarged. Her mouth has kind of grown a little bit and kind of curved out. Her eyes look completely wild. Bone, sharp bones protrude from her skin at various parts of her body, kind of defensive weapons. And she is absolutely prepared to fight the lot of you. At 9, Agravain, you go first. You pull the cord and you feel momentarily the blood bond recede. And if you can imagine the feeling you have for someone that you loved like 20 years ago, whatever lingering little bit of it remains is what this feels like. It feels like an ancient love. It's still there, but it's an ancient love easily overlooked right now. What would you like to do?
As I rip the cord from my neck, I yell her name, and I'm gonna rush forward with the stake drawn, and I'm going to attempt to drive it through her chest.
Alrighty. Let's look at your strength plus your melee. That's 3 and 5. I will say that your abilities are good enough to overcome her defenses. When she sees you coming, she just is kind of taken aback because she doesn't expect you to be able to attack her, and you come at her and you drive the stake into her heart. Give me, if you would, a D10 roll. Just flat out D10.
Another 9.
Another 9. You run the stake right sort of in the middle of her chest where you feel her heart might sort of be, and you feel it hitting bone and just shatter as it hits impenetrable bone throughout her entire chest area. And with your strength, the stake just sort of explodes in a bunch of in a million pieces, all these shards of wood scattering around. She looks at you and gives you a little smile, and she gets to go at 6. And with that, she reaches out and grabs you by the throat, and she will attempt to grab you. You don't have dodge. I will say you can roll your dexterity and your melee if you wish. Number of dice equal to those. And you're going to be looking for 6s, so anything that's 6 or above will be a success.
3 successes.
3 successes. She gets 3 also. She gets ties. She grabs you by the throat. You feel her claws sort of sink in and dive in all the way into your neck. Like the claws are just growing inside your neck, and they're going for your spine. You can just feel them sort of pushing in. You will take an aggravated damage from this attack. So mark it with an X on your sheet rather than just a dash, because you can't heal it just simply with blood. But a lot of you see her grab Agravain and hold him up, and her claws just sunk into his body and the blood just sort of dripping out of it. At 5 will be Anton.
Anton's gonna stand there for a moment, staring back and forth, having no clue what to do. He'll finally make the decision, pull the cord, whisper Aveline's name, and he will lunge. He doesn't have a stake, but he's gonna try with his dagger.
As you pull the cord, you remember when you were taken back to France from the Crusades on that slave ship, chained the entire time, and then you were sold, and you were chained the entire time, and then you were forced to endure slavery for a number of years until you met your sire, Jacques Bonhomme, who freed you. And you remembered that day when he had reached down and with his vampiric strength broken the chain that had been around your neck for like 5 years at that point, and that feeling of freedom suddenly kind of overwhelming is the exact same thing you feel now as you pull on that cord, and all this hatred and every time she's demeaned you, every time she has pushed you down, just comes flooding back and sort of enrages you. And because you are Bruja at this particular moment, before you attack, I'm going to ask you to make a self-control roll. So roll a number of dice equal to your self-control. You can spend a willpower point to succeed automatically, or Everyone's got a advantage from TCAT. You can spend that also if you want to succeed automatically.
That's 4 successes.
All right, that's pretty good. You clamp down on it. You know this is that moment. You're not going to sort of fly off the handle and not be there for it. You attack her. What are your stats? Your melee and strength are probably pretty good.
No, they're not. They're 1 and 1.
All right, so go ahead and roll, mein Freund. They're looking for sixes. Anything 6 or above is a success.
1 success.
All right, so you lunge at her, and the rest of you, you know Anton is like a brood, right? But you just lunge at her, and she just incredibly quickly just sort of sidestep, and he kind of misses in his rage as he's so angry. For Odette.
Odette's going to go for her, but I'm also going to go ahead and use a willpower for an automatic success because Odette is just a little baby.
That's excellent. You come striking for her, and as you do, you remember a time when she was telling you something about the heart and how, as a human, your power and your strength and your conviction all come from your heart, but as a kindred, it has to come from somewhere else. And as she was saying it, she was inadvertently, perhaps, rubbing down lower into her stomach, sort of where her body is. And you remembered that moment. And in that moment, you divert your hit, and your stake goes right in there and plunges in, and you see her eyes just go wide as your stake reaches her heart. At that same moment, you see tendrils of shadow that erupt from the ground as Santiago is calling forth the part of shadows. They wrap around her arms and around her legs, and they start pulling her down, and you see her still trying to kind of reach for you, Odette, and her hand wraps around your face, and you feel her claws sort of dig into you the same way she's holding Agravain with her other hand. Her claws start to dig into your face, and you feel them just rip at your cheeks and rip at the flesh of your face, and then she goes very rigid as these shadowy tendrils grab her and pull her down into the floor, or onto the floor rather, and she's there. The stakes are sticking out of her belly, immobile. And Santiago says, we don't have much time. You can already see outside the flames, the color of the flames, as the tower now seems to have started burning at the bottom. Santiago says, quick, gather around, and his friend, Lindworm, Arena, is pulling things out of her bag. He's like, please gather around her. How do you feel at this moment, having finally kind of, for a moment, overcome this blood bond for the first time in several years for many of you, and sort of taken into account everything she's done here as Reina Lindworm is preparing her final ritual? What's going through your characters' minds? How are you feeling? Anyone who wants to go, please go.
Odette remembers a Bible verse. And as the sort of ritual is occurring, she's going to look down to Aveline and say, I am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake, and I will not remember your sins.
Very well put. Sir?
Fleur has this deep resentment for Aveline because she's the reason that Fleur's muse has gone away. She's taken away her humanity. She's taken away her love for life and everything beautiful in this world. And her paintings aren't bad. They're beautiful. But Aveline is too rotten to even realize that. She's too rotten to realize the beauty that's in front of her. Because everything she touches turns to dust and hatred and vileness. And she realizes that she was never the problem.
Anton?
It's another slave driver. The bars were different this time. The chains were the same, but How could he have never seen it? He swore this wouldn't happen again. Just an intense, seething anger as he stares straight at Aveline's eyes and her face. He will be the last person to ever hold him down.
And Agravain?
Agravain feels a pride swelling inside of him. And he knows now that when he said to her that he was going to, that he wasn't really skulking, he was waiting and watching. He knows that that was real. And now he's rewarded for his waiting.
Reyna prepares several elements, drawing a mystical circle around the body, drawing arcane symbols on the body of Aveline. Aveline is still staring at all of you through her eyes, and you can see the anger and the fury in the beast that is just roiling beneath it. Reyna will reach with a knife, cut Aveline, and fill a chalice with her blood. She will speak ancient arcane words around this chalice filled with blood. She will drop several little elements in it. There will be a smell of burning blood coming through from this cup. She'll say the first step is for each of us to wet our lips at this cup so that we may all partake of what she has to offer us. And she will bring it to her lips and just really let the blood inside touch her lips. And when she pulls away from it, her lips are stained black with this ancient blackened blood. And she hands the cup over. Santiago will take it and do the same, and then he will extend it over. Who reaches for it?
Odette will take it from Santiago and drink from it.
When
And
you...
then-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
When it touches your lips, it burns. You feel an intense feeling of impending sin, like what you're about to do is the most sinful, most depraved, and most exciting thing you've ever done.
Odette sort of nervously hands it over to Fleur next.
Fleur will take a sip while maintaining eye contact with Odette.
As the liquid touches your lips, Fleur, you are reminded of the pure joy and power of creation. You get the feeling that what you're about to do is, on one hand, exactly the opposite of that, like you're about to engage in some act of destruction. But you are also fully cognizant that in order to create, one must often destroy, and if your ability to create has been stymied, it's perhaps because you need to break something down, to destroy something first, so that your ability to create is renewed.
I will offer the cup to Agravain.
Agravain takes a drink.
Does Agravain remove his, or drinks through the...
No, he drinks through his mask. He pushes the goblet to the fabric and sucks the blood through the fabric of his face.
As you taste her blood and the way it has been transformed right now through these arcane means that this Lindworm person seems to have, you are reminded for a moment of all the dark things you saw and did as a soldier in the Christian army. You are reminded of all the excuses you made for it, of all the ways you manipulated yourself into doing them, into believing that what you were doing were right. You feel that right now what you're about to do is, as with Odette, a most grievous sin, but in some ways it feels almost more clean than all those things you did before.
I hand the chalice to Anton, and I am staring him directly in the eyes when I do so.
Anton will take the chalice and match your gaze. Kind of look down at it for a moment and remember all the times he was teased for the blood. Something he had always, it was never readily offered. And just maintaining eye contact, will take a drink from the cup.
As her burning blood touches your lips, Anton, you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. You feel freedom. You remember you were never much one to pray to gods. You did it because it was something everybody else did, perhaps, or perhaps it brought you some measure of comfort, but it wasn't out of belief. You, in fact, didn't really know what belief was until you realized how much you believed in freedom and how much you could not have that freedom. The one thing that really meant something to you was gone. And now, for the first time, you can taste it literally on your burning lips. As you all finish drinking from the cup, you feel this overwhelming sense of connection amongst all of you, and Santiago and Arena. All of you are connected in this act that you're about to perform. You don't really understand it. Perhaps some of you have read about it. Perhaps some of you have heard about it from other vampires. It is an act that is spoken of in very hushed tones, in very dark circumstances. It is the single darkest crime a kindred can commit. It is called diablerie for a reason. And as this burning blood touches your lips, you find yourselves completely overwhelmed with the need to drink of Aveline's blood, to take back what she has taken from you for all these years. And as all of you fall on her body at the same time, each finding a place to bite in, your fangs just piercing her flesh, penetrating her, the vitae inside of her filling your mouths. You taste the power in her blood. You taste the taint also. There is something wrong with it. There is a taint in there, but that does not matter. The power of it, the feeling of how ancient she was, just fills you up, and you drink and you drink and you drink, and at some point you start realizing that you're no longer drinking blood. There is no blood. Her corpse has become desiccated. It has shrunken down. It is almost kind of like a mummy. There's nothing left of her, and yet all of you are still pulling from her, and you feel something there just on the edge of your hunger. You feel there's something left that you can take from her. You know it's going to cost you if you do, but you also get an unrivaled promise of power, of liberty, emancipation, strength, wisdom, clarity, call it whatever you want, but it's right there. All you have to do is commit. Do you?
Almost without hesitation, Anton will.
Agravain commits.
In this fervor, does Does Odette feel like she's a little closer to God?
You feel like it will depend on what you do. You feel like there's a presence that has perhaps taken a step back but is waiting to see what you do, sort of sitting in judgment on your actions, but there's no indication of which way it should go. There is a void there now where there was always at least a little something. And the best that I can offer you is to say that either this will fill that void or it will open it up bigger.
She's gonna commit.
Fleur, when you drink from her, it's almost like drinking of your own blood. You are her child. She created you. You are as you are now because of her blood and what she has done to you. But as you're getting to this point now, this edge, you remember an old story, an old tale that is often told about the apprentice surpassing the master. You know those stories never end well for the master, because the master usually can't handle that, having the apprentice become better than they are, but sometimes it's just the way things are.
Fleur pulls away for a moment, looking at Aveline's body, committing it to memory. And then she finishes the quote that Aveline had said to her that she told the rest of the group. Immortality is only for us. And then she bites back down.
And as all of you commit to what you're doing, you each feel a small portion of Aveline's soul split by the ritual of the strange wizard Reyna Lindworm, split into equal parts, enter each of you. You feel a surge of power, a surge of strength. You also feel a little something dark slip into you. You feel a little shade of darkness now coloring who you are. You know this stain will be with you forever. You know this stain will follow you. It is now a part of you. But the power you now feel perhaps makes up for it. Anton, you've never felt this free before in your life. This is the ultimate moment of freedom. All shackles have been thrown off. You are a god walking this very earth. Agravain, you feel a final little flicker of light somewhere deep in your soul. That last little bit of God's light. Sputter. Myriad, sorry, Fleur, for a moment, you see through Aveline's memories, her closeness to you, the fact that you shared her blood. You see something. You see that your brother had a daughter, that Aveline found her, that Aveline turned her into a ghoul. And you can see that she is with a strange, haunting, misshapen figure in Hungary somewhere. And Bones, Odette, there's a fullness now where there was once an emptiness. You hear a voice reaching out to you again, speaking to you, bringing you warmth and light. And when it speaks to you, it speaks with Aveline's voice. A moment later, the lot of you will see the flames have reached the top of the tower. It's time to leave. The body of Aveline is turned into ash. It is nothing more than a dark memory imprinted on the floor. Santiago, wraps himself around Odette and steps back in the shadow, and the two of them disappear. The rest of you find your way out through the steps that led you here in the first place. You emerge outside. You turn in time to see the garret catch in flames. The home where you spent so many of these years, the home that was Aveline, now like her, turning into cinders and disappearing. What are your last thoughts before you turn away and disappear into the darkness?
There's this profound sorrow that Fleur feels for the wasted years and how easily she was fooled, how gullible she was. And there's also this great sense of relief because she does have eternity ahead of her.
Anton's clear head, for the first time in a very long time, is almost overwhelming to not have someone that you aim to please at all times. It's going to take some time to get used to that, not having that. But it's very much a relief to be rid of it.
Agravain is thinking how there's so many shadows and so many secrets to be discovered in the world. Which one he might find next, and with who.
And just as she was swallowed in the darkness, what was Odette's final thought?
That she has this immense feeling of manic jubilance, that she has at last heard God's voice one more time, and an countenance of an overwhelming terror that it is Aveline's voice.
Each in your own way will fade into the darkness, will go on to live with your demons, your grief, your guilt, your joy, your elation, your newfound freedom for several hundred years. And my friends, we will end here for tonight, but we will come back and check in on these characters 2 weeks from now, and we will check in on them in the year 1929 and see what has happened to these wonderful characters you've created in those hundreds of years that will pass between now and then. And with that, thank you very much. Thank you very much, players. You're so phenomenal, all of you. Amazing. Thank you, audience. Thank you, watchers, for coming and hanging out with us and watching this weird little dark play sort of take place. Greatly appreciate all of you, but greatly appreciate my players. You're all so awesome. Is everyone all right? Everyone good?
Yes.
Mornings. choking. You okay, man?
Yeah, sorry, I'm good. I'm great.
All right.
Stop choking.
No one call 911.
Yes, ma'am.
Simply stop it.
Thank you so much. So, yes, please, let's go around. Tell these fine people who are watching you right now who you are, where they can find you, what you got going on, and we will start again with the one who has disappeared through the shadow. Bones. Hey, little Bones.
Hi, that's me.
That's you.
Hi, I'm Little Bones. I have the smallest bones on the internet. You can't prove me otherwise. You can find me all over the internet as Little Bones 309. I'm an indie gamer here on Twitch. That's all I do over my channel. And I play TTRPGs around the web with all my friends. Coming up, I have my birthday stream next week. It's my birthday coming up. If you don't come wish me a happy birthday, I will cry. I will make it really uncomfortable for everybody. Nobody wants that. It'll be really bad. But yeah, so I got that. And then every Wednesday I find a new indie game to play. I play indie games all throughout the week, but every Wednesday we find something that you don't normally see on your Steam front page. So check that out. It's called Wishlist Wednesday. It's a good time. That's all I got going on.
Excellent. That's more than enough to keep you busy and out of trouble, I would hope. Probably not, though. Probably not. Look forward to your birthday stream. I will totally be in there, being a nuisance, as usual. Thank you so much. Odette is wonderful, and I very much appreciate you being here and bringing her to this channel and this little chronicle of ours.
Thanks.
Next up, the man who has thrown off all the shackles, is no longer anyone's dog, will go out there, make his own mark on the world. I have named Mornian.
Hello, I am Mornian. I do stream occasionally. Twitch.tv/Mornian. Otherwise, you can find me in one of these amazing people's channels, probably either being a mod or, again, a general nuisance, as I do. Come hang out. It's fun times.
Thank you so much for Anton, who brought quite a bit of restrained fury, and that was very nice to have that character there. It always felt like it was about to blow up and wreck some shit, and I was very glad to see him pitch in the end and find his freedom. Thank you so much. Mornian, appreciate you, man. Myriad, what can we say other than there are artists and there are work of arts, and you're both. Please tell us who, what, where, when, what's going on. What's
Hi. You can catch me here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Myriad_X. Don't call me Myriad_X, though. That's my government name. Just call me Myriad, or Miri. That's fine, too. You can catch me right now. We're kind of we're really obsessed with Baldur's Gate 3, and you can also catch me on Wednesdays playing through the Mass Effect the series. That's the word. And then I am everywhere else playing in various TTRPGs. There's too many for me to name, so figure it out somehow.
Who are you romancing in Baldur's Gate? That's the one question that everyone wants to.
I've got a couple of playthroughs, but like right now, Asterion is my one true love, which is fitting because he's a vampire. So.
Life imitating art. Thank you so much, Myriad. Yep. Greatly appreciate you being here. Also, playing for the first time with you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I could give Creep an introduction, but really, how could I do justice to the phenomena that is Big D Creep?
God damn it. Hi, I'm Big D Creep. I got the biggest D in all of Twitch. No.
I believe it.
But I am the #1 creep on all of Twitch, and you should come hang out with me and watch me paint stuff sometimes. I do that. You can find me as Darling Creep Show all across the interwebs. And this Sunday is Dragonfire and Cormyr, where me and Bones will be playing some homebrew in our awesome local DM Durograx's world. So come over, hang out, and get weird with us, because that game always manages to get fucking weird. Yeah.
How
Thanks
weird.
for having me as always, Bleak. I don't know. Me and Bones passed a pearl of power back and forth between our mouths like a couple weeks ago.
It was a bonding experience.
It was bonding. We were bonding.
We won't be taking any questions about it.
No, but it did have a nice mouth feel.
It did have a really good mouth feel.
Yeah.
They shook a turtle.
I'm not. I'm not 100% sure where I fit in all of this. Like, how can I even top that or follow that? Like, I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for
Yeah,
words.
you definitely can't top us. So.
No. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've been put in my place on Bleak Season. Find me everywhere, especially here. As I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, where we will take this coterie into 1929 Chicago, and see what they've been up to for several hundred years, what they're doing out there. We are about to go and raid some friends of ours here. Please hang out, give them some love. Come back in 2 weeks to hang out with us. These people are amazing. Go visit their websites, go visit their links, go visit their Twitches. Give them all the love that they deserve. Thank you so much for watching. And that'll be it for us tonight. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate all the players. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Stay safe.